Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Hormones and Health. And we have our weekend live marathon. So, extra bonus for you. And if you're here live, please ask. You can put questions in the comments. And also, you can put questions after the show if you are seeing it recorded. So, welcome, everybody. And I want to welcome you to our interview with a really exciting guest, Dr. LaKeisha McMillan. We're going to be delving more into menopause, into hormonal balance, into women's health. So stay on it and tell us your comments. All right, so let me introduce you. Our guest today is Dr. LaKeisha McMillan. She was born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama, and she earned her undergraduate degree in biology, cum laude, from Oakwood College, now Oakwood University, and continued her studies at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. Her ability to reach and teach women has expanded through her bestseller, The Other PMS, Your Survival Guide for Perimenopause and Menopause. Her passion for helping women in perimenopause and menopause included her contribution to being on the advisory board of the only FDA-approved physician-designed vaginal lube line, Momentum Intimacy. A gifted speaker, integrative OBGYN, hormone specialist, and Amazon best-selling author, Dr. LaKeisha helps women in perimenopause and menopause who are struggling with depleting hormones get their hormones balanced, regain mental sharpness, and have energy to last the entire day. Wow, don't we want this? So if you want to become a hormone hottie, follow Dr. LaKeisha on all social media at Dr. LaKeisha MD. So welcome, Dr. LaKeisha. Let me bring you on. I am very excited to speak with you today. Hello.
Hi, Monica. I am so super excited for this summit that you're having. This is awesome. And thank you for having me here on this Facebook Live in your community today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, because honestly, these are all really hot, important subjects. Menopause, perimenopause, hormonal balance. These are things that women are struggling every single day. And when you talk about getting your energy, reclaiming that energy and balance in the body, I mean, this is really resonating with so many. So welcome. And, I would love to start with your own story because I know you have one. And how did you get inspired to be helping so many women?
Oh my goodness. Wow. I often start out by talking about how I was blessed to be in a two-parent household. And it was my brother, my mother, and my dad. And we were a very tight-knit family. I mean, my parents were educators and, they always encouraged us to do what we wanted to do, dream and get those goals. And my brother and I would tease and say, daddy was our biggest cheerleader, mommy is our coach. And, you'd run in and say, hey, I want to go to the moon. And daddy would say, yes, you can do it. Absolutely. Go ahead. And mommy would pull out the paper and pen and go, okay, how are we doing it? What's the SOP? I need to know all the materials. How, what's the plan? How are we doing this? Right. And so I was around 12 years old when I said, hey, guys, I want to be a doctor. I want to deliver babies. And it was after I'd seen this documentary of, the miracle of life. And I was sitting there like, that's so super cool. I want to do that. And so my parents were like, we're not doctors, we're educators. My father was elementary school principal. My mother worked in college, the collegiate level. And they said, you need to find yourself around a doctor because you need to figure out if this is really what you want to do. And so I found myself in a doctor's office from 13 years old, Monica, 13 years old, filing the papers. Ladies, this is when, you had paper and you had to file the papers in the paper chart, right? And I was blessed to be in this office with Dr. Hicks in Huntsville, Alabama from 13 all the way till I matriculated through and got to medical school. I actually went to his alma mater, Loma Linda University. So I got to see every aspect of the practice. I even got to go on rounds with him. And so I tell ladies all the time, if you could see my highlight reel, right? I call it the highlight reel. You would be like, "Ooh, she's checking off all the boxes. Like, oh my goodness, wow, yes, yes." Got accepted to medical school early. Check. Okay. Went through medical school. Check. Got reacquainted with a Oakwood College, colleague of mine, a classmate of mine. We got reacquainted. My last year of medical school, we got married. Check. Oh, that's a whole nother story because I changed my seat in biochemistry to sit next to him because he was cute and he didn't pay attention to me. But anyway, he says that, timing was everything. And so if we had not allowed the timing to be right, we wouldn't be here 20 years, 2 kids and a dog later, right? And so again, checking off all the things. But can I be transparent with your
Yes, you can be transparent. I give you permission for that.
So there are significant dates in your lives, ladies. Everybody can vouch for this, where you will never forget. You will just be like, you know what, that day in my life, I remember where I was. I remember what the time was, all of that. And I actually have 2 significant dates. One of them is February 23rd, 2010. It's 1:00 in the morning. My brother calls me, and through his tears, he's telling me she's not going to make it. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? Who are you? Wait, what? And he said, Granny, she's not going to make it. They're trying to revive her and she's not going to make it. And I'm saying to him, no, you're wrong, because she just talked me home from work today. She literally called me and I was on my way from the hospital home and we had a wonderful conversation. She was fine, but she didn't make it. And then I remember as we're sitting there burying her body, I'm looking 2 plots over, and there is my father's plot where the grass hadn't even grown over his plot because he had passed away 10 months before her, April 2nd, 2009. So I am reeling. Our family is reeling. Tight-knit family. The rug has just been ripped out from underneath us. And we are just like, what is going on? How are we going to pick up these pieces? I'm married. I'm in a new marriage. We have a son, a little one. And I am now struggling, ladies. I am struggling to get home every day. I have no energy. I don't like my husband. I don't want to have sex with him. Y'all, he's kind of cute. And I was like, wait a minute. We really had a connection. We became cordial roommates. We got up. We made sure our son went to daycare. We made sure the bills were paid. But something was going on, and it was more than grief. And so as I sat down and started peeling back all these layers and listening and remembering some of the conversations my mother and my grandmother would have around me, because they were pretty open about what was going on with their bodies, I was like, something is just not right. I didn't like my patients anymore. When my pager went off, I was like, what do you want now? And this was not me. So through therapy, amen for therapy, and being able to take a step back, I said, what's going on with me? And I realized that I needed to kind of heal thyself first, physician, heal thyself, before taking care of others. And so I took a step back. I stepped back from what some would call traditional medicine. I came home. I started working on me. I started diving into integrative medicine, trying to understand what that looks like when you take care of a whole person. I got my own labs checked and I saw, oh my goodness, you need some help. Your adrenals are shot. You're not making testosterone. You can't sleep. You can't, lose weight. Everything, your brain is foggy. And that's when I was able to say, hey, I can give my gifts to the world in a different way. I love education. I love being able to help women. And so that's how I became Dr. LaKeisha, your integrative gynecologist, hormone specialist, speaker, and best-selling author.
Wow, it's an amazing story, because you had to go under your own hood and figure that out, right?
Yes, I like that. Go under the hood and figure it out. I like that. Yes, I absolutely
you can relate to all those women who are struggling with brain fog, with lack of energy, with just depression, not wanting to do anything, not having the energy, right?
Yes.
It's a huge thing that's happening. So let's delve deep. So you've learned on your own self, you healed thyself, which is beautiful. So let's go into basics. Like, so when you saw yourself in that state, like, what did you find out and how did you start helping yourself?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Monica. I love that. Now, ladies, I'm going to tell Monica for a brief minute. You're going to have to tell me when to stop talking because I love talking about this topic. So you're going to have to tell me it's time to stop. It's time to move on. Okay, so I'm going to watch you for the signals. But yeah, so what happened is I started working for a wellness center, and at that point was when they were offering me to get some lab work done. You know, look at your serum levels, and I was like, okay, let me just look. When I got my levels checked, I had no measurable testosterone in my bloodstream.
Okay.
My adrenal marker, which some people use as kind of like a really quick snapshot to look at your adrenals, my DHEA was in the toilet, my DHEA-S. And I remember the day I got my labs and I called my husband. I was like, I know what's wrong with me and I'm so excited. He was like, okay, good for you. And so this is where it was like, okay, how does this look? How do you start repairing this? And it became a journey that blossomed into not just looking at the biology and how does this look on a biochemical level, but also how does this look as a whole person? Because if you'll remember, I felt like there was this inciting type of incident, these two big things that kind of happened back to back that were stressors that were really kind of traumatic for me, that I believe started this whole domino effect of actually going into perimenopause a little earlier. I feel like we all experienced this. I was on another podcast about a year ago or so, and me and the host, we were having just a very candid conversation, and we came to this kind of like epiphany where she said to me, you know what, do you think that going in and having these stressors that we have now that we're dealing with is actually catapulting us into perimenopause and menopause a little earlier and a little more intense? And I said, you know what, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that, because when you are stressed, when you have this stressor, it will definitely change some chemical relays from the brain to these other organs. You know, your pituitary, I call it the conductor of the orchestra.
Yes.
And it sends down signals to all these other organs. And when nobody's listening to the conductor anymore, everybody's doing their own thing. And that's where the system can get a little screwy. Okay. And so when I started seeing, so I started from one spot, and you got to start somewhere. And mine was on a chemical level, on a biology level, where I was like, oh, this is happening in the serum. I decided to do something about it. My choice was to actually do some bioidentical hormone therapy with testosterone. And then I started learning about restorative practices and taking care of my adrenals so they don't hijack the system anymore, and really being able to do some deeper work. Because if you don't look at you as a whole person, you can do all this wonderful, get your bioidenticals, get your supplements on board, but you'll be right back here, same song, different verse.
Yes, you touching upon something so important that, we can take hormones, but how many women take hormones and have no long-lasting results? So actually, I would love to talk more about the restorative part. Like, how did you get into how do you help your women now?
Oh my goodness. I'll say to them, most people have been on an airplane, right? And so you get on the airplane and you get the safety instructions, right? And they'll say, okay, if the cabin pressure changes, an oxygen mask will drop from the ceiling. Put your mask on first before helping anybody else. And actually what I'll do is I'll say, what do they say? And my ladies will say, oh, put yours on first. I said, aha. And they have that own light bulb moment, like, oh yeah, because we're so used to giving. And a lot of times we don't realize we're giving from an empty cup. So we're really not giving. We're just stretching ourselves really, really thin. And so we will justify being busy and saying, hey, I'm doing all these things, but not realizing that it is really from a depleted space.
Yeah.
And so I'll say, hey, this is how this works. So then I give the analogy, think of yourself as a car. The engine in that car are your adrenal glands. The gas pedal is your thyroid gland, and under the hood, the computer system, those are the sex hormones. If you take your car, your regular car that you drive all the time, and you don't change the oil, what happens to the engine?
Right. It dies at some point, right?
Exactly. It dies. It burns out. What happens if you don't take care of your adrenal glands?
They burn out.
They burn out. You cannot stay at a certain rate, a certain push level and sustain that. And so having these type of conversations is what can help women to get to a point where they're like, you're right. Okay, what is it that I can start doing that will give me some restoration? I love breath work, Monica. I absolutely love breath work. I love forms of meditation. My meditation and mindset coach, Dr. Carol Pinn, she is awesome. She has taught me that there are different forms of meditation. And so for my brain wiring, my ADHD brain wiring, moving meditation is actually the best for me. So Pilates, yoga, swimming laps in a pool, that is my moving meditation. And that helps to restore my adrenals so they don't hijack the system.
Yes, I just want to tell you one thing, because I love what you're saying about exercise, because we've been talking a lot about exercise on this show. And the thing is, we take it as a chore. We take, like, I have to go running for half an hour or an hour, and like I have to do it. It's actually disrupting our system more than anything. But the way you put it, it's a moving meditation. So if you do something that you really like, if you love swimming, you can swim laps. And it is movement, it is exercise, but it is actually attuned to your body. So absolutely. I just wanted to highlight that. That's very important.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you all are talking about exercise. And I'm so glad you brought up the point that some exercise that we used to do when we were younger, you can't necessarily do the same type at the same intensity because your hormones have changed. And so it actually kind of gets interpreted as a stressor. One of my mentors, she doesn't even know she's one of my mentors, Dr. Sarah Gottfried. I love all of her stuff. She has a book out that was one of her older books, one of her first books that I read. And she was talking about how she used to be a runner. And she used to run and was noticing, wait a minute, that's actually making me gain weight. I'm actually more tired. Like, what is it? She said, because it was making her cortisol go up, because it was a stressor, because things had changed. She was now in a new phase of life. So you had to figure that out. So she said, when I went to a different type of exercise and I went to exercising less, which some people can't even fathom that. She was like, okay, I gave my system time to recover. Things worked better and different. So yes, having those restorative types of practices, having moments that where you show up for yourself, where you put you on the calendar. I love to do infrared saunas and I do magnesium floats. And that is my time. And my family knows it. It's on the calendar. Matter of fact, I tease them now. I said, there are times where you all like, is it time for you to go float again? Like, is it time for you to go to that place? You know, because when I come back, I'm super relaxed. A lot of times my voice has dropped an octave because it's just that much of restoration where I'm not coming back like, okay, what are we supposed to do next? You know? So doing restoration and restorative practices ultimately helps you to stay balanced with your hormones because it does not allow the adrenals to hijack the system and take over and shut down, say, the computer system, or not allow you to press on the gas pedal and move forward.
Awesome. Great. So think about adrenals and how they can actually, shut down the entire system. And we wonder, like, do I need my progesterone? Do I need my estrogen? And like, it's not going to do anything for your body because the engine is shut down. So you can pour oil and put all the beautiful paint on your car, but you're not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. And so you have to remember everything is interconnected. So I say to ladies all the time, you know, your sex hormones interplay with your adrenals as well as your neurotransmitters, as well as the thyroid. Everybody has to play together nicely in the sandbox. Nobody can throw sand at the other one, because then we won't be happy, right? So we have to be nice and balanced so that you can actually show up the way that you want to show up in this world. Because at this phase of life, you have all this institutional wisdom. You have gone through so many things. You have learned so many lessons. Now you just need the body to keep up so you can show up. And so you can give the way that you've always visualized yourself giving or envisioned yourself giving. And that's where we are. It's like, okay, there's some things that have happened biochemically. And so it is showing up certain ways on an everyday basis, like fatigue or joint pain, or, you know, the brain fog, the scrambled words, not being able to put things together, not feeling as sharp as you used to be, not being able to recover from your exercise or lose the weight as easily as you used to, or just feeling fit and good and feeling whole. And so that's how it shows up every day. And I tell women all the time, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. It's more than likely your hormones that you just need to get balanced, as well as have certain micronutrients on board to make those chemical processes go according to the way that they're supposed to.
Great. Yes. Thank you. It really warms my heart too, that you're starting with the restorative practices and really taking care and putting your oxygen mask. And I think we all can do it. I hear from so many women who may have, you know, children, family, they taking care of everybody. So just like give us a picture, like if a woman comes into you and she's completely depleted, she has brain fog, tired, cannot lose weight, really feels out of her body. And she is in that situation. Maybe she has 3 kids, she has older parents, and like it feels like everything's on her shoulders. How do you start? What do you tell her to do?
Wow. So Monica, are you in my house? Do you have a surveillance camera or something? I mean, you're just describing my life.
Right?
You're completely describing my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm in it with the women. We're here together. And so what I will sit down, we'll have a really deep and in-depth conversation about their medical history, understanding their symptoms, like when did this start? How does it make you feel every day? What's the biggest thing that interrupts your life? Because there's so many different symptoms in perimenopause and menopause. I think, you know, there are different sources that will say that they're up to even 85 symptoms. And when you look at those symptoms, it's a lot of what some people were just like, oh, you're just getting old. Oh, welcome to the club. You're just getting old. No, these are now being touted as, hey, your hormones are imbalanced depending on which ones they are, because there are a lot of different hormones in our body. We aren't just saying your sex hormones. And so I'll say, okay, what's the biggest thing? Let's see this. I'll often get a serum test. That's your blood test. That's a regular blood draw that a lot of women are aware of, that you go to your lab, you go to your, you know, your lab, your local lab where your doctor will send you and get your blood drawn. Now, I often say to women too, when you go into your doctor's office and you say, can you check my hormone levels? And your doctor looks at you like, well, what are you talking about? You really have to be specific, because there's so many different hormones in your body. So if you start saying, hey, I'm really concerned about, you know, some of my sex hormones getting depleted, along with either your thyroid or your adrenals, there's a list of various different hormones that you can ask for by name. Okay. So there's various ones. I often say you can ask for FSH, you can ask for progesterone, estrone, estradiol, testosterone free and total, SHBG, which is sex hormone binding globulin. You can ask for DHEAS. And then there's a whole slew of thyroid hormones that you can also ask for. So when you're more specific, that actually helps direct the conversation a little bit better. And then I'll say, okay, let's come back and let's talk about this. And when we talk about these labs and then we go in and we dive into them, I'll say, this is probably why you're feeling this way. Now, if it is, there's so many different scenarios here, but just a generic one, like say that you're in perimenopause and say that you're still having a cycle, but your periods are now very irregular. They are not what they used to be. You know how it was when you were in your 20s, your 30s, you knew exactly when your period was coming. You knew how many pads or tampons to use. You knew what jeans you could wear during those time of day, those couple of days. Everything was like so in sync. Now you're like, I don't know when it's coming. It's coming every 2 weeks. It's now really heavy, or it's really light, or now it's spacing really far apart. This is when we start seeing, a lot of times you start seeing where your progesterone is just not going as high as it used to go when you were younger. And so you really have more of this imbalance in estrogen and progesterone. The other thing that can be happening too is that your testosterone is plummeting as well. So I see a combination of, oh my goodness, I'm starting to have these hot flashes at night. Like at night, you have the pattern of kicking your foot out the bed to get cool, or tossing the covers off, or you get, this like ping, all of a sudden I'm waking up at 2 to 4 in the morning and I just can't get back to sleep. Or now I'm exercising and I can't lose weight, or I don't want to have sex anymore. I could be meh about it. It's kind of like, it's here or there. You can also see, oh my goodness, my brain is just not as sharp as it used to be. I have this word salad in my head and I can't seem to string the thought together and make a full thought and present what I want to say anymore. Do I have early onset dementia? These are some of the things. And so this is where we start talking about, okay, this may be progesterone deficiency and testosterone deficiency, and how do we deal with that? And so that can be the start of a conversation with a particular woman that comes to me that may be perimenopausal. This is the time before going into menopause. This can last from 10 to 12 years, ladies. Before you actually go into full-blown menopause. So this is kind of where you could potentially start. I hope I answered your question, Monica.
Yes, this is great. And actually, we have some questions from our viewers.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. Okay, and I love those questions. So one is very quick is Yolene's asking if you would be able to put all those hormones in a chat. So we may actually send you an email with it.
That would be great. That would be great.
We can put it together. I think Dr. LaKeisha can help me.
Absolutely.
Definitely do that for you guys.
Or actually, I don't know, Monica, I hope this isn't a shameless plug, but I have a book, The Other PMS, and I have all of those labs listed in my book.
Perfect.
So if you'd like if you'd like an autographed copy of my book, you can go to theotherpms.net and place your order there, and I'll send you an autographed copy of the book. And inside the book, those labs are listed.
Okay, theotherpms.net. We're just going to put this here in the chat. And really, so a question that I see here from Amy, it's really interesting. And it's right up my alley too. She's asking about, is there a great way to regulate hormones post-hysterectomy? And she's still suffering from endometriosis related symptoms. And I did want to talk about hysterectomies and surgeries and what this happened to our body, because so many women have gone through this and now are wondering, do I need replacement? Do I need specific hormones? Maybe I don't, because I don't have the organs anymore. Why am I still suffering from symptoms?
Oh, that's a great question. So these are actually, let's kind of break them up into the various different questions that they really are. So Amy is saying, how do you regulate hormones post-hysterectomy, but she's still suffering from endometriosis and related symptoms? So this can be a little complicated, Amy. So endometriosis can have flares, or can have, you can actually kind of trigger the pain, the symptoms of endometriosis from estrogen. It's usually estrogen driven. When you have a hysterectomy, there are different types of hysterectomy. So a lot of women will say either they had a partial or total hysterectomy. And what they are talking about is, if they had a partial hysterectomy, they'll say that means for them, the doctor left their ovaries. If they say, oh, I had a complete hysterectomy, then for them, they mean the doctor took their uterus, their cervix, and their ovaries. in the world of medicine, that's actually not the way that we separate it. Okay. So a partial hysterectomy is actually where we just take the uterus and we can leave the cervix and the ovaries.
Yes.
If you have a complete hysterectomy in the world of medicine, when a doctor is documenting what they've done, it means a total hysterectomy means that we've taken the uterus and the cervix. Okay. Taking your ovaries is actually complete, total different procedure called a BSO, which is bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy. We love big words in medicine. It makes us feel important. Okay. So taking your uterus only, a lot of doctors will leave the ovaries because we know that ovaries producing hormones is beneficial for you long term, unless there are signs of some problems with the ovaries. That's a whole nother discussion. So when you have just taken the uterus, you still have your ovaries, you are more than likely still producing some estrogen from your ovaries. You even produce estrogen from your adrenals and from your adipose tissue. Now, it could be that you may need some progesterone and some testosterone to balance out what is still going on in your body. That takes blood work. That takes further evaluation, because we really need to see what's going on in the bloodstream and really talk to you and figure out what are these symptoms that you're still having. So that's a very, really generic answer I can give to you. And I want to make sure everybody knows I am a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. So make sure you go to your healthcare provider and get your specific questions answered. So I'm going to answer as much as I can on this type of a forum.
Yeah.
When you have a hysterectomy, like you were saying, Monica, a lot of women say, hey, do I even still need hormones? What we are finding is that there are some big benefits to making sure that your hormone levels stay within a certain level, a certain balance, or a certain what we call plasma bioavailability, which is a level in the bloodstream, because of the benefits such as decreasing your risk for dementia, decreasing your risk for colorectal cancer, decreasing your risk for breast cancer, decreasing osteoporosis. So if a woman is a candidate for, certain hormone therapy, you need to have that total discussion with your doctor to see if you are a candidate and make an informed, consent to start, or an informed refusal. I think informed refusal is just as important, and having all the information. You also need to make sure that you have certain micronutrients on board to make sure that you are processing these hormones properly and getting those metabolites out of your system so they don't sit around and kind of gum up the system. Okay. So if you don't have certain B vitamins, if you don't have certain antioxidants on board, or things like glutathione, which is a great antioxidant, if your COMT enzyme is not supported, if you're not methylating properly, I know I'm saying a lot of different words, ladies, and all of this can be checked with a doctor looking at certain types of tests. I not only just use serum, but I also use the Dutch test, which is a dried urine test, which can look at some of these pathways, these metabolites, to see how you're clearing these metabolites out of your system. So a lot of times when women come to their doctor and they're saying they're having symptoms that are reminiscent of really bad perimenopause or even menopause, and they don't have a uterus, their doctor will say, oh, well, you don't need the progesterone component of it because you don't have a uterus anymore. Progesterone has a lot more jobs than just, influencing the uterus. And I know that Monica wants us to talk about that too. Okay.
Yes, and so I would say to answers Amy's question, because she's asking if there's a really great way to regulate the hormones. I think it's also, so of course, talking with the doctor and having that informed discussion, but also looking again at restoration, looking at food, looking at diet.
Yes, absolutely.
Micronutrients. And we talk a lot about food, metabolic health, and gut health on the summit as a crucially, fundamentally important thing to even think about hormones, because we have to metabolize them and we have to absorb them. We can't just pour them in the body. It's like pouring water on the stone, where you're putting all that all those substances and they're not being absorbed, they're not being utilized.
Absolutely. I love it. You guys, I have several mentors in this industry. And one of them is Dr. Carrie Jones, and she is really big in the hormone space. And she has her famous bathtub analogy where she talks about estrogen detoxification, because I love what you were saying, how you just, you got to make sure that the whole system, including gut health, is actually working properly. So what she says is you have to think about, with water going into a bathtub, the water is the hormones. So you make sure you have the right form of hormones going in. So if we talk about estrogen, the main one we really like is estradiol. That's the right one that really is very helpful for us. Going into the bathtub is where a lot of the detoxification happens. And this is the liver, where you get methylation and you get the COMT enzyme to turn up. And so you get this where you actually kind of change the shape of the estrogen molecule a little bit, so that when the water goes out of the bathtub into the piping system, which is your kidneys and your intestines, it can go out properly. So women, that's your poop and your pee, basically. Yeah. But you address everything backwards. So you make sure that you're going to the bathroom regularly so that you can evacuate all of these metabolites. You make sure that the bathtub is nice and pristine. So that's the liver, making sure you have liver support. And then you make sure you're putting the right hormones on board. So this is why you address it. It's 3 phases, but you address them phases backwards, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Because like you said, if stuff just sits around in the bathtub and it doesn't drain out, it gets yucky and gummy. Think about used bath water, right? Yeah. That's essentially what is happening. And so you have to, I'm so glad you've addressed gut health, that you've addressed, the restoration and micronutrients and good, wonderful, good foods and all those micronutrients, because you need all of it. It is a complete package. It is not just one little thing. And everybody is so different. You're going to look, your recommendations are going to look different from your girlfriend's recommendations, which is going to look different from even your mother's or your grandmother's or your aunts, because your body is different and we have to see what's going on with you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. My question is, for a woman who may be listening and now she hears all those names, all those different hormones, and thinks about how many tests do I have to now have? How many different things do I have to go through? Do I have to go to the doctor and spend thousands of dollars for those tests and all that? So how would you talk about that?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is where it does get it becomes a journey. It does become a little bit of a journey. And so if you can find someone that is, say, they are a hormone specialist or they're an integrative doctor, a lot of times they have put together a test bundle that they like to do for their patients that they can either get you started on, or what they do is okay, maybe it's a 1-2 kind of a punch. Maybe I need this first and then we go here. And so everybody kind of does it just a little different. There's no one right way to do it, but this is where you may have to go on a journey. And so if you can find some place that says, hey, this, and it works for you, and you can say, okay, here's what I do. And unfortunately in the United States, there are a lot of places that this is an out-of-pocket expense, because insurance is getting slow on the boat to actually cover a lot of this. So you may have to do the serum test at one point. There may be a Dutch test or a dried urine test. Some people do a dried urine test where they look at the metabolites. So this may be some type of an investment that you have to kind of consider. A lot of places will take FSA, which is flexible spending account, or HSA, which is your healthcare spending account. You can use those. You can use that type of an account to be able to pay for it. So yes, it can be a little daunting, but once you know what you're actually expecting, because a lot of times when we go into the doctor, we don't even know what to ask for or what to anticipate. And when you can go saying, okay, if they say the word blood test, I can ask them which ones are they doing, and making sure that they have the information I'm looking for. And if they'll say, oh, I want to do a Dutch test or a dried urine test or an organic acids test, those terms are more likely a dried urine test, where they're looking at metabolites, they're looking for micronutrients, they're looking to see if you have the right things on board. And then you can make a really informed decision of which ones you want to have done.
Okay, so I think your book probably really helps with that too, right?
Well, yes, the book gives you a little bit of a, hey, this is kind of where you are. It's a really pocket kind of a Cliff Notes guide to say, hey, if you're experiencing this, this is more than likely the test that you need to get. So the book,
Okay.
I think somebody asked what was the name of the book. The name of the book is The Other PMS, Your
Mhm.
Survival Guide for Perimenopause and Menopause.
Okay, we'll put it in the comments as well again after the show. So please stay tuned. Beautiful. Wow. I mean, there's so much we can cover. I did want to talk about actually more specifically about progesterone and estrogen and how they work with, especially with the perimenopausal transition to menopause
Absolutely.
period for women.
Absolutely. So a lot of times the progesterone starts dropping first, or one of the two, usually between progesterone and testosterone. I usually talk about them together because we know that as early as our late 30s, our hormones can start dropping and not going as high as they used to. And what do I mean by that, ladies? So I tell ladies, think of your period in terms of grass growing. So estrogen was the hormone that came and made the grass grow tall. So the uterine lining kind of grew, waiting for an egg to come plop on the surface. Progesterone's in charge of the lawnmower system. So progesterone says, okay, let's see if there was an egg fertilized this month. Ooh, waits around, makes cycle, gets a memo, no egg was fertilized. It says, okay, we're going to mow the lawn in 2 weeks. That's when you have a period. But it tells the lawnmowers, you got to wait 2 weeks before you mow the lawn. Now, progesterone should wait around and make sure everything's all nice and comfortable. But for some women, especially in perimenopause, that progesterone starts dropping too fast, too soon. And that's when you can have those really bad PMS symptoms, like not being able to sleep, breast tenderness, the fog, the temperature dysregulation. And that can happen. And that's what usually happens like that week or two before you actually see your period, where women are like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, just grumpy, right? And so that is where we start talking about, especially perimenopausal women that are still having a cycle. You can do some things to actually help to support your body, either making its own progesterone or helping it stick around. So there's seed cycling. I love seed cycling. You can do seed cycling. You can take some certain herbs like maca root that can be supportive of the ovarian function to be able to help you make more of your own progesterone. And if that's not enough, you can actually go on some bioidentical progesterone that you can actually cycle just the second half or the luteal phase of your cycle, so that it does have that support, so you don't have that big drop too fast. Now, progesterone has several jobs, okay? So in the world of integration or integrative medicine, we call progesterone nature's Xanax. And that's because progesterone also goes over to the adrenals and it says, hey, she's good. Take her shoulders from up around her ears where she's like, let her relax a little bit. Let her say, okay, everything's fine. It also goes over to the brain, to the neurotransmitters, and says, hey, I'm going to help her get to sleep. Okay. So every night we're going to help start that whole falling to sleep cascade. So we're going to help her turn the brain off so she can know it's time to stop today's work. It's time to bookend it. Let's land the plane. Let's go to sleep so we can do this restoration in our sleep. Okay. And then I also explain how testosterone and estradiol usually come in and play tag team when it comes to restoration and sleep, and they take over and help you get that good restorative sleep. So you see how everybody kind of plays along.
Yeah, they have to play together.
They have to stick together. And so a lot of times when it's perimenopausal women that come in that give me certain symptoms, like my periods are now irregular, I'm not sleeping as well, a lot of times it's progesterone. And so we'll talk about how would you like to approach this, and what does your medical history look like, where we can also offer the bioidentical progesterone as an option. And a lot of times, some women will go ahead and do the bioidentical progesterone and they come back and they go, oh my gosh, I was able to, like, what was that? like why have I not had this all my life? And this is different from the progesterone that is in birth control, ladies. This is different from the progesterone that was found in the WHI hormone side of the WHI initiative. So this is totally different. This looks just like what your body used to do. So again, it breaks down into the right metabolites. And if you're pooping and peeing right, and if you have your right micronutrients on board, you're processing this, you're clearing it, you feel really good.
Good. Awesome. Yes. So it's bioidentical. It's a natural substance. And we also have to have our whole system in place.
Absolutely.
So it is actually working. It's not just clogging the toilet, because there's more stuff that we're putting in our body.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I just want everybody to just get this. If you're not getting anything from the summit, like, please get this, that it all works together, and we can't just put stuff into our body and expect results. So Leslie, like, what are your favorite ways of naturally supporting sex hormones, especially in that period of perimenopause and transition to menopause?
Oh, some of my favorite ways are, I like maca root is one. And then I also like, there's seed cycling that you can do. So some women that are really, that are open to, making sure that they have the right, seeds that will produce the right, like, organic acids that will produce the right omegas and be supportive and right micronutrients on board. You can do seed cycling. And so you can use certain seeds for the first half of your cycle. And then for the second half of your cycle, you can do seed cycling. And I always have to look up, because I don't want to say the wrong things, but
you can probably look it up on Google. Seed cycling.
Yeah, no, I have it already pinned. So I always make sure that I have it, so that I can tell ladies exactly how to do the seed.
Oops. I think we lost Dr. LaKeisha for some reason. Let's wait on her and see if she comes back. So we will put more comments. I will put the book in the comments on the Facebook group as well. There we go. Where's Dr. LaKeisha? I don't know what happened, but I bet she's going to be back in a minute. So beautiful. Do you have any more questions? Here we go. She's back. Beautiful.
Hey, what happened?
Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that.
It's all good. It's technology.
Oh, wow. So I guess you guys didn't hear me when I was saying what the seeds were.
We started talking about seed cycling, yes.
Okay, so seed cycling you can do in the follicular phase, which is days 1 to 14, or until ovulation. So we're looking at we'll just take the example of a 28-day cycle. You do 1 tablespoon each freshly ground raw flax seeds and pumpkin seeds daily. And then for the luteal phase, which is usually days 15 to 28, you do 1 tablespoon each freshly ground raw sunflower and sesame seeds daily. Okay, so that's seed cycling, where you can support the various different phases of your cycle, and that will actually help you to produce. In the luteal phase, it'll be supportive of production of progesterone and keeping your progesterone elevated. For some people, this is easy to incorporate into their lifestyle, because you can put these seeds in like a smoothie. You can sprinkle them over your salads. Some people put them in their homemade salad dressing, so that it's part of, just part of their foods. So seed cycling is one of them, or even using some supplements like maca root. Is one thing that I'll use. I'll say that you can use maca root because it actually supports ovarian function. Even using myo-inositol is another substance that helps with ovarian function and can be very helpful with blood sugar regulation, because a lot of times what happens too is that you're now becoming a little insulin resistant because your insulin spiking, and that is part of what's happening with your you're actually having some metabolic dysfunction when the hormones are not going the way that they used to cycle.
Okay, yeah. And we also talk about insulin and blood sugar. So this is great that, we're kind of putting it all together. So yeah,
Awesome.
so I know there's a lot we could talk about. And so yeah, I will, like I said, I will put the book in the chat so you can look at Dr. LaKeisha's book as well, but you can probably people can visit your website too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
It's drlakeishamd.com is the website.
Okay. So let me put this in the chat. MD.com. Okay. So tell me, is there anything I haven't asked you today that you feel like would be really important, apart from everything else that you
Oh my goodness. No, I believe we've had a really rich conversation, a full conversation. I like being able to help women to understand that I look at you as a whole person. I'm not just team hormones only because that is just one of the tools I have in my toolkit. I'm able to look at you as a whole person and say, hey, here are some things that we need to do to be able to help you in your entirety. Now, I don't do all of it. I have some of my super friends, I call them. You have to have nutritionists, you have to have exercise, people that are well versed in all these various different areas. But for me to be able to guide you there is a real joy for me, because I feel that in this phase of life where we'll spend about a third of our life, right? Because this is a really big time in our lives. We just don't have the handbook. We didn't have the talk 2.0. We get the talk when you're going to have your period, right? Everybody gets the little, oh, your body's changing. Things are going to happen. Here are some of the things you can use. You can use tampons, you can use pads, you can use cups, you can use, now we have underwear. My goodness. I'm like, wow, where was this when I was coming up, right? We have all these different tools, but then you're left to guess when you're in this phase. You are left a lot of times in silence, feeling like something's wrong with you, because it affects your relationships. It affects how you show up to work. It affects how you show up in your community. It affects how you even like yourself. And so when we are not given the verbiage, when we are not told, hey, you're not by yourself, there is true physiology that is happening, and it can show up looking like this, then we tend to suffer in silence. But if we can shine a light on this, have summits like you're having, Monica, this is awesome. I've been a part of several different summits, and I love this because we are now standing on mountaintops with a bullhorn saying, ladies, this is it. You don't have to suffer. There's so many things that we have, but we still have so much more to further to go. And so the more we get our collective voices together, we'll be able to continue to make changes. So I just love that we've had a full conversation today.
Beautiful. Wow. No, it was amazing. And I think everybody's learning so much. And I think that the most important thing is that in being inspired to action and knowing that there's so much that can be done and that you're not alone, and that we are here and we're here together in this because we all going through those transitions. So I think reaching out as well and being in the community and talking about it, it's really a big part of the healing of sustaining our healthy, empowered, energetic life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that.
Beautiful. Wow, Dr. LaKeisha. And I know you have a special gift for us, don't you?
Oh, yes, I have a special gift. I have the hormone quiz that you can take so that you can see where you are. It's kind of your you are here type of of an opportunity to see, hey, where am I? What's going on? So if you go to hormonequiz.co, that's hormonequiz.co, you can grab your free quiz, and subsequently you may be able to schedule a free strategy session with me as well.
Beautiful. Yes, we will be sharing this in the email, in the daily email. So please stay tuned and you're going to get that as well. Wow, Dr. LaKeisha, it was a true pleasure speaking with you. And I just love your energy and your motivation and how you're, true your heart is right there. So I want to honor that. Well, thank you so much. I know we'll talk again at some point. And thanks,
Absolutely.
everybody. Thank you for asking your questions. And reach out to Dr. LaKeisha, get her free gift. And we'll put the book title again so you can take a look at that. All right?
Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Bye.